Tisha B'Av, such a confusing day. A day where we sit on the floor, we lament, we cry. For what? For a temple that stood so many years ago here in Jerusalem. It was destroyed. It was tragic. Millions of people died. Unfortunately, millions of Jews died at the Holocaust. And yes, we have a commemorative day, but to sit on the floor and to cry for so many years over something that happened so long ago that I can't even really relate to it. It's from a different world. What is it that we're crying over? What is it that we're missing? Look where we are today. We've advanced. We've moved on. Jewish people are successful around the world. We've built our own country here in Israel, our own sovereignty. And yet, we sit on the floor and we cry. What is it for? And the truth is that every Jewish holiday has its own mitzvah, its own commandment. On Pesach, Passover, we eat the matzah. On Sukkot, we shake the lulav, we sit in a sukkah. On Hanukkah, we light the Hanukkah candles. What's the mitzvah of Tisha B'Av? They say the mitzvah is tears. Dma'ot is crying. How does one bring himself to tears, to actually cry over something that is so distant? Now, there's something very unique about tears. When is it that we cry? We cry when we're overcome with emotions. Sometimes it's emotions of joy, but usually it's emotions of sorrow, of pain, that someone hurt us. And the tears clog our vision, and everything gets blurred, and we can't see things clearly. And that's what today seems like. It's like, what exactly is it all about? What is it that we're mourning? And if I don't really know what I'm mourning, should I be mourning today? So there's something very profound in Jewish wisdom that by mourning, through mourning, even if we don't understand what we're mourning, we get to understand what it is we're mourning. And then through the understanding of what it is that we're missing, we actually have a deeper understanding and a desire to partake in the mourning, in the crying, in the sitting on the floor. You see, unfortunately, there are many tragedies. Imagine somebody passes away. We have a custom to sit on the floor during the Shiva, the 7 days of mourning. And it's 3 days of crying and 7 days where everyone comes to comfort. And then we have the 30 days. Then eventually we have a year. And at the end of the year, so we have a commemorative day. We say the Kaddish. But then that's it. We sort of move on with life. Why isn't it the same when it comes to the temple? There is a destruction. We lament, we cry, but we move on. The Jewish people, we know how to move on. We want to be successful. We're not survivors. We're not just holding on to the pain of the past. We move on. But yet here we're holding on to the pain of the past. Why? Why is that? See, there's a profound difference. The reason why we normally move on when someone passes away after a year, it takes us a year to sort of process and understand what it is we lost. But then there's actually a blessing that Jewish wisdom calls it. It's the blessing of forgetting the deceased after 12 months. We don't forget him entirely. We commemorate them once a year. We try to remember their name. But it's a blessing that we're able to move on with life. Otherwise, it could be too much. Imagine somebody lost a lot of different family members over the years, and the pain is still fresh the same way. We wouldn't be able to live in our lives. So there's a blessing in disguise that we're able to move on after someone passes away. But unfortunately, and here in Israel, it's been cases for some families. If a parent sends away their son to battle, and he doesn't fall in battle, but rather he's missing. He was taken captive. He's missing. We're not sure where he is. When someone is missing, when a child is missing, a parent should never go through such a tragedy. The parents never forget the pain. They can't move on. Where is the child? There's no closure. And they remember forever. We find this with Jacob and his son Yosef. Joseph was taken away, was kidnapped. Jacob didn't know where he was for 22 years, but he refused to be comforted because he didn't know where his son was. When something is not dead, it's just missing, so then you refuse to be comforted. That itself is the comfort. The fact that the Jewish people are still commemorating the 9th of Av, after close to 2,000 years since the destruction of the temple. That fact itself gives us comfort, because that fact itself shows us that the concept of what the temple stood for is not dead. It wasn't killed. It was just taken away from us. It's missing. We're longing for it, like a parent who's longing for their long-lost son. The fact that we're still mourning, that itself gives us comfort. The Jewish people will be able to restore it, to build it back, to come back. Just imagine the first Jewish family that left. They were exiled. So they were sitting in mourning. It was terrible. It was tragic. 5 years go by. They're still mourning. They commemorate that day. 10 years go by. They add a prayer next year in Jerusalem. L'shana haba b'Yerushalayim habenuya. In the beginning, people probably thought they were crazy. I can't believe you're thinking that you'll be back. No nation comes back. The Romans have destroyed you. The Babylonians have destroyed you. But yet, next year in Jerusalem. And 50 years go by. And they're still saying, next year in Jerusalem, they're still sitting on the floor commemorating the day that it was destroyed and that people were killed. And they're able to pass it on to the next generation. And the next generation understands we need to internalize what is it that we're missing. And that's why we're sitting on the floor, to internalize it, to understand it. And then we pray we want it back next year in Jerusalem at the end of the Seder night. 100 years go by. 200 years go by. The neighboring, conquering nations are saying, you Jews are crazy. No nation ever comes back. It's been 500 years already. But yet we're sitting on the floor. We're crying. We're missing something. We're not complete. At the Seder table, at the end of Yom Kippur, we blow the shofar. We say, next year in Jerusalem. We pass it down. 1,000 years go by. 1,500 years go by. Until the generation of your great-grandparents, my great-grandparents, where they started saying, next year in Jerusalem, it's going to happen. We're going to make it happen. And they slowly start to make it back. And to come back to Jerusalem. Because for all these years, they were sitting on the floor, trying to understand what is it that we're missing. And when will we get it back? And even today, when we're back in Israel, we sit on the floor and we say, we're missing something. Something is not complete. I want to try to understand what that thing is. Why are we not complete? What's missing? So the name city, Ir, in Hebrew, Ir comes from the word le'orer, to awaken. The cities awaken within us certain things. We know in the farms is where you grow the produce, but revolutions, they spring up from the cities. Technology comes from the city. So what does the city of Jerusalem awaken within us? What is it that it awakens and we don't have it and therefore we're mourning? Is it beauty? Is it culture? The truth is that the Talmud says that Jerusalem is considered, there's 10 attributes of beauty that came to the world and 9 Jerusalem took. But what does that mean? That's the honor of Jerusalem. I would think it's the city of holiness, the city of spirituality. What does it mean that Jerusalem is a beautiful city? I think we need to understand the name of it, the name of Jerusalem. What does Yerushalayim mean? And then we'll understand what it represents, what it awakens within us, how that is what beauty is really all about. Then we understand what it is that we're missing. Because you see, Jerusalem awakens within us 2 things. Number 1 is that search for the most basic thing that every single human being is looking for. Try to think about it. What is it that we're looking for? What do we want in our lives? Every human being is looking for a life filled with meaning and purpose. It will give us happiness. It will give us peacefulness, tranquility. It comes through the understanding that there's a purpose to life, that there is meaning. The word Yerushalayim comes actually from the 2 words. Yeru is yireh, to see, shalem, completeness. Yerushalayim represents that we should merit to see a complete world. Now, a complete world, my internal world and the world around me. I need to have, you ever feel like an imbalance in your life between your body and your soul and your desires, and you want to do good and you're feeling this and you have temptations and you have limitations and you're being pushed in different directions? That's what Jerusalem is about. It's about seeing harmony in our lives, being able to see the completion of everything together. Yerushalayim, to see it all come together. Yerushalayim is the most basic fundamental human need. Right before Tisha B'Av, I was hosting UN ambassadors on the rooftop of Eitiel Torah. We're looking at the holiest site, and I'm telling them, based on Jewish tradition, this is really the UN. This is the place that symbolizes that we have aspirations for a complete world that works together and tries to make the world a better place. Now, the UN is far from it, and that's part of what we're lamenting. That we're so far from that complete world, that world where everything works together. And that's really what we want. I want to understand what I'm here for, what's life all about, how I can be a better person, how can I find my love. And those are the moments, these are the things that Jerusalem represents. It's not just an ancient wall. It's not just a historic site. It's not just what once stood there. It's what it represents. What was the holiest room inside the temple? It was the Holy of Holies. What made it so holy? What made it holy was that it housed the core values of Jewish life, which are the core values of humanity. Don't kill and don't steal and don't covet, don't lie. Honor your parents, have a day of rest for humanity. Believe that there's a God, that we have a mission to accomplish. We can make the world a better place. It represented values. It represented a complete life. You ever have that feeling of, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, uncertainty? You would come to the temple. It would be completion. Your inner world would just make sense. And it would make sense around you. That's what it represents. And that was taken away from us. It's no longer Yerushalayim. It's no longer you should see peace and harmony. And if we don't have peace, inner peace in our personal lives, and communal peace in our communities and in our neighborhoods, and world peace, so then the world is not perfect. And that's what we're crying about. And if we don't cry, so then it doesn't matter to us. That means okay, I'm ready to move on. The fact that we're crying means that bothers me. It bothers me that the world is not in a better place. It bothers me that there are still people fighting in our communities. It bothers me that my life is incomplete. It's shattered. People from all over the world. That bothers me. When it bothers you, hopefully that will lead you to bring change. Because Jerusalem awakens within us another thing. Not just that search for that complete life, the meaning and purpose, but it also awakens within us the unity between two different Jews. Jerusalem is considered the city that binds the Jewish people together. It means that, yes, we're divided into 12 tribes, 12 different political views and clothing and opinions, but yet when we would come to Jerusalem, we would bond together. We would see the beauty in diversity. We would unite through the differences. Because everyone knows if you want to have a successful company, you can't have everyone thinking the same way in the company. You need to have different people. You need to have your accountants and your creative designers and your CFOs. Everyone has a different mindset and a different outlook. But together, when we work together, we will be successful. That's what Jerusalem represented. Let's all come together, the different backgrounds, the different approaches. Let's work together and reach our mission as the Jewish people. But we didn't know how to do that. And if we don't know how to unite, if we don't know how to see the beauty and the need, we actually, by definition, we can only succeed if we are different elements within the Jewish people, but yet working together for that shared goal of sharing God's wisdom in the world, of making the world a better place, making ourselves, our inner world a better place, creating that inner Jewish community that is based on these core values that the temple represented. If we can't work together to make that happen, so then we're shattered. If we're shattered, that temple that represents those values, that we're supposed to build a society around those values, it's worthless. If it's worthless, it gets destroyed. If it gets destroyed, we get sent out to exile. We get sent out to exile for thousands of years until we start working together. And when we start working together, we start rebuilding our country. We still have a long way to go. Long way to go. Jews respecting one another from different backgrounds. The fact that you're watching this right now means that you're yearning to make a difference. To make a difference in your own personal world, maybe in your friend's world, hopefully together in the Jewish people's world. That's really what today's about. Today's about stopping the race of life. Yes, we are survivors and we triumph and we build and we move on. But we can only move on if we remember what it is that we're missing. And we remember that we're still missing it. If we forget our core, if we forget what we stand for and what our mission in this world is about, so then we'll have what to lament. The fact that we are lamenting today shows that we remember. The fact that we're sitting on the floor shows that we care. Shows that it bothers us that the world is not perfect, that my inner world is not perfect, that my community is not perfect, that we don't have complete unity amongst Jews. It bothers me, so I'm crying over it. And if I'm crying over it, that means that I'm one step closer to maybe creating the small change. And that's why, by the way, next week comes Shabbat Nacham. We right away turn it into joy. What changes? Every year it's like we sit and then we're back to being joyous again. What changes is the fact that we're sitting on the floor and crying is a reason for us to celebrate this coming Shabbat. Because if we could cry over these things, if it bothers us that we're not complete, that there isn't complete unity. So yes, our eyes are all fogged up because of the tears. Things are blurred. We don't know how the world will continue. But we know that if it bothers us enough, maybe we'll do something. Maybe we'll get another Jew to join. Maybe we'll be willing to work with Jews that are different than us. And together we will merit to see the coming of Mashiach.